So here's the brain of a non-procrastinator. Now, here's my brain.
Oh, this is so funny, but useful, very useful.
The rational decision maker who gives us the ability to do things no other animal can do. We can visualize the future, we can see the big picture, we can make long-term plans, and he wants to take all of that into account, and he wants to just have us do whatever makes sense to be doing right now. Now, sometimes it makes sense to be doing things that are easy and fun, like when you're having dinner or going to bed or enjoying well-earned leisure time. That's why there's an overlap. Sometimes they agree. But other times, it makes much more sense to be doing things that are harder and less pleasant for the sake of the big picture, and that's when we have a conflict. And for the procrastinator, that conflict tends to end a certain way every time, leaving him spending a lot of time in this orange zone, an easy and fun place that's entirely out of the make sense circle.
And you see, the reason why this happens is because you don't really, you have never learned to actually say no. You have never learned to refuse the suggestion. Every time when you switch from, I know what I should be doing, I'm on track, I'm working, and a suggestion comes, like the monkey, as he says, a suggestion comes, the problem is that we take the suggestion, we go for it. We'll be like, oh yeah, that'll be good. Or not even, most of the times it doesn't even happen like in a rational, conscious way. You just do it. And then you wake up later when it's like, I don't know, a few hours later, and you go like, oh, what have I done? But at this point, you're already in pain, because the more you run away from or you avoid the things that otherwise you know you should be doing, that also comes with a price, with a feeling of like, I'm failing, I'm falling behind, and that doesn't feel good. But imagine the solution here, at least one of them, is to practice to learn how to say no. Like the suggestion comes and instantly have like a buffer of time, of consideration, like, wait, what's going on, before you react, before you respond to the impulse. Imagine what happens when you are on track and you go like, okay, let me just go to the fridge, like he says, to grab something. And what if you actually become aware of that? You become aware of that tiny conversation happening in your mind and go like, no, that is before you actually lift, you go to the fridge. This is where the problem is. We have never practiced this. There is no gap, there is no buffer in between. It's just that there is the suggestion, and then we react to the impulse, and then later we regret and we spin in the same circles. But the practical practice here, something to really focus your attention to, is how do I get good at noticing that exact moment when I'm about to switch, and how do I do like a pattern interrupt? Like, nope.
The dark playground is a place that all of you procrastinators out there know very well. It's where leisure activities happen at times when leisure activities are not supposed to be happening. The fun you have in the dark playground isn't actually fun because it's completely unearned, and the air is filled with guilt, dread, anxiety, self-hatred, all those good procrastinator feelings.
Exactly, because when you start to procrastinate, like I said, you have this feeling of dread. And instead of just going back on track and say like, okay, the right solution here is go back on track and continue, resume the work, like basically continue what I should be doing. Because of that feeling, we try to cover it, or we try to get away from it by distracting ourselves even further. Because you see, you get in a vicious loop. You are doing the wrong thing that feels bad to some degree because there is this sense of guilt, but what you are doing, the distraction itself, feels good. So then you kind of make a trade in the moment and be like, okay, in order for that feeling to go away, I'll just do more of this. But again, this is not a conscious choice. It just happens. And this is why I recommend oftentimes that we need to have more awareness in action. Like if you become aware of what's going on and you are able to see how you are tempted to switch direction, but you refuse that, and you almost like switch back quickly, if you do this oftentimes, if you do this enough, eventually you become very good at it. But that's really the difficult part to practice.
But in the middle of all this excitement, the rational decision maker seemed to have something else in his mind. He was saying, are we clear on what we just accepted? Do we get what's going to be now happening one day in the future? We need to sit down and work on this right now. And the monkey said, totally agree, but also let's just open Google Earth and let's zoom into the bottom of India, like 200 feet above the ground, and we're going to scroll up for 2.5 hours till we get to the top of the country so we can get a better feel for India.
This is actually very, very good, because what's going on here is the monkey, the way he describes it, always has suggestions that look innocent. Has suggestions that look like, yeah, of course. You know what? I'm totally with you. Let's work together, but here is how to do it. And here the devil is in the details, because the suggestions that come from the monkey look like work, but actually they are not. And this is really this is where self-awareness is very useful, because if you would really have self-awareness to see what's going on, then you'd be like, wait, no.
We need to think about what we're really procrastinating on, because everyone is procrastinating on something in life. We need to stay aware of the instant gratification monkey.
I will tell you one thing. It's not always the instant gratification the reason why we procrastinate. Sometimes we procrastinate because and this is usually before starting something that we perceive to come with some sort of adversity, some sort of difficulty. We perceive some sort of friction in advance. So then when we do that, we just use procrastination as a way to just not get in contact with what we perceive to be this difficulty ahead. And oftentimes when we cross the threshold and we start, we realize that, oh, actually it was not that hard. It feels better now that I have started, before all the resistance, because it comes in the form of resistance, that I had before. But oftentimes the hard part here, again, because of lack of self-awareness, is that we don't realize the resistance. We don't, resistance doesn't announce itself as like, oh, this is resistance. It's a feeling accompanied by some suggestions of something else to do that might be more appealing, more interesting, fun, and enjoying. It seems that somehow I cannot get myself there, right? There must be some sort of resistance. Like what exactly am I resisting is a good question to ask. Or like what am I trying to avoid? Like where is this feeling coming from? And then I think that when you have this type of conversation with yourself, you're going to be in a better position to realize, oh yeah, because I don't like to do this, or I'm not a fan of doing that. And yeah, well, I have to do it. So then once you see it, it's so much easier to start with. I had the same experience in 2017. I was in Toastmasters, and every time when I would register for a speech, I would have this feeling before the speech, preparing for the speech, before starting to speak on the stage. I would have this feeling of like, like I would do anything just to not put my mind to that. But once the timer starts and I'm speaking, it's a feeling of like, what was I running away from? Because this feels amazing. Like why it felt so bad to resist something that actually when you do it, it feels good. And this is why it's good to know what you have resistance towards by noticing the patterns, because then you're going to shortcut that feeling of dread. And oftentimes you are not going to have them at all. When we procrastinate, to some degree, we are avoiding something. By definition, there is something you are avoiding. You see, what he doesn't say is that sometimes the rational logic side of you works hand in hand with the monkey. We don't say that sometimes we allow the monkey to take control. The way he describes it is like, well, the monkey wrestles the control. The monkey takes the control. But think about this. if someone wants to wrestle the remote control from your hand, like literally it's a struggle. Like you want to have the remote control so they can control the TV, and someone else, another person wants the same remote so they can change the channel. And then let's say that there is no conversation, like there is no, just like wrestle, force, right? Well, if this person always takes the remote out of your hands, either they have more strength, more physical strength from compared to you, or let's say that they find a way to convince you so you hand the remote. Well, in this second option, that means that they have proposed to you something that you have accepted. So if you follow the trail, it means that we always have the control with us, but we oftentimes we co-conspire. I guess we play a role in deluding or in deceiving ourselves. It's not like we are always a victim to the monkey. And when you realize this, you are going to have a healthier relationship with the monkey, and you are going to develop a better sense of when to say, yeah, you know what, it makes sense to take a break. It makes sense to, I don't know, just chill for a bit, do something else, and then come back to work. And other times you're going to be firm and nothing is going to push you away from your track. This is just going to say that procrastination, it has many different ways that it manifests, but no matter what, it's always a proposition that you accept, and your point of control or what you can work with is always developing that self-awareness in the moment so you can say no.
But we're most likely to procrastinate tasks that evoke negative feelings, such as dread, incompetence, and insecurity. Studies of procrastinating university students have found participants were more likely to put off tasks they perceived as stressful or challenging. And the perception...
And that's what I was saying, that sometimes you've perceived some sort of resistance, some sort of friction, and you are avoiding that. Correct. But this doesn't answer why sometimes, although we might perceive some sort of resistance from the task that we have, we still do it. Well, really the secret, or like the whole recipe, is definitely found in there. How come at different times, although you perceive the same level of threat, you decide to do different? So that's totally possible. It's not like, oh, you perceive the threat, so therefore you procrastinate. Yeah, maybe the tendency is there, but it's not necessarily that it's going to go that way every single time. And again, that's where the whole solution is.
Frequent procrastinators are likely to suffer from anxiety and depression, ongoing feelings of shame, higher stress levels, and physical ailments associated with...
And the reason why that happens, so it's true, it's because we have this almost like a higher intelligence in us that otherwise we know what we should be doing. Like we really know. The problem is not knowing, right? The problem is not lack of information. Many people say this, and this innate intelligence that we always have in us, that voice that doesn't really scream, it's not really loud, but it's always like speaks more silently. Deep down inside, you always know what you should be doing, and here's the point, the more you run away from it and you procrastinate, although it might feel good in the moment, and you are kind of distracting yourself, at the same time, you're not fully distracted. There is always this idle, but always running process that knows that, hey, you're not doing what you should be doing. And that comes with like really feelings of shame and guilt and failure. It's because deep down inside, you know that I'm off track. I'm wasting my life. Without being specific, nobody's that specific when we procrastinate. No. It's more like those ideas get translated through feelings directly. And you cannot really put words on those feelings. It just feels off. But that's the reason, because we naturally, we want to I guess we want to feel progress. We want to build something. We are designed for contribution, right? And even if we successfully manage to distract ourselves, it doesn't come with all good feelings. You're perfectly distracted and you're just like, that is not going to affect you. It's like you just wake up later and be like, oh, well, what have I done? No, they are both coexisting. You are distracting yourself and it feels somehow pleasant or comfortable, but at the same time, you also feel bad. Both of them at the same time. And that's the reason, is because the more you avoid to build a good life for yourself, deep down inside, you know that will come with feelings of regret later. And that shows up in the moment of this, like, it feels good, but not quite.
With high stress. Worst of all, while procrastination hurts us in the long run, it does temporarily reduce our stress level, reinforcing it as a bodily response for coping with stressful tasks.
Again, here is where I actually disagree with this, because it's not that in the moment really you feel all good and everything is good. No, there is that silent feeling in there that something is off, and that doesn't feel good. It's just, again, I believe that both of them coexist at the same time, and that's why it feels like I'm distracting myself, but it's actually not good. I know I'm doing something wrong.
How can we break the cycle of procrastination?
Tell me.
Traditionally, people thought procrastinators needed to cultivate discipline and practice strict time management. But today, many researchers feel the exact opposite. Being too hard on yourself can layer additional bad emotions onto a task, making the threat even more intense.
Not necessarily discipline is not necessarily being too harsh on yourself. That is not true, because you can be perfectly aligned with your goals and you can be perfectly aligned with yourself, and that can look like disciplined, like you are literally disciplining yourself, but not really in a harsh way, like, oh, you should be doing this. No, not in that way. Just like knowing what you should be doing and doing it. That's discipline. So that doesn't have to come with bad feelings. Sometimes, in fact, when you are fully on track and disciplined, it comes with it's a very empowering feeling to know that you are doing exactly what you should be doing. But here, I guess they are talking about a different type of discipline, because if you check in the dictionary, it kind of like means not just one thing, it means a few things.
To short-circuit this stress response, we need to address and reduce these negative emotions. Some simple strategies include breaking a task into smaller elements, or journaling about why it's stressing you out and addressing those underlying concerns. Try removing nearby distractions that make it easy to impulsively procrastinate. And more than anything, it helps to cultivate an attitude of self-compassion, forgiving yourself and making a plan to do better next time.
You see, the solution here is just like logistics. Break a task into a smaller task. All those things actually work and they sound very good on paper, but this is like very basic advice with nice visuals. In reality, what I would say that it's really a better, more sustainable way to deal with procrastination is to align yourself with yourself. Because procrastination, by definition, it's a misalignment. Again, you always know what you should be doing, but the misalignment comes from the fact that your actions are not really matching your goals or the direction that you know that you should be going to, right? And when you align yourself with yourself fully, you don't need all this, all these tactics, all this, although they help. Like those are like little tactics that can help, and I'm not saying they do not work, but they're not really the whole substance of the solution. The biggest, the most important, the most fundamental solution here is for you to really get to that place where you understand, oh, I feel and I know that I've been avoiding, I can perceive I have some sort of resistance here. I can see it. I can look at yesterday, last week, last 3 months towards this project or whatever I need to be doing, and I can see what I'm doing. I can see what's happening and I see what's going on. But when you have that level of self-awareness and you zoom out, you have almost like a space in which you can put things together in a more aligned way, that next time you are not going to be tempted to procrastinate. You see, the procrastination comes from the fact that you're not fully on board. You're not fully aware. And I would say, this is my personal theory, is that if you do that type of work first, and you think about what you're building and why that's important for you, why that matters to you, procrastination will not be there, because it will be just like, it would be a subpar way to use your time. You would not do it because you know that which you have realized during the self-awareness is more important. So therefore, you are not going to take the bait, the suggestion. Remember, there was that video with the instant gratification monkey, right? You're not going to take the suggestion anymore, because that it feels like low standard. Like, I have something bigger that I'm aligning myself with, and then everything else will be like, no, I'm not interested.
Then if you do this, you will do it. Like, you will have no choice. The solution is boredom. Ironically, that's also the problem. The solution and the problem are the same thing. You don't want to do that work because it's so boring to your brain. You want to gouge your eyes out. All of these distractions that you have around sound so much more entertaining than doing that thing. So you always have a back door. So the key is to utterly delete the back doors. The key is to strip away every single option, to sit in a blank room with nothing in it, no phone, nothing. Eliminate your ability to do anything other than the thing that you need to do, and you will do it.
If you would have the willingness to strip away everything else and just like make yourself bored, when otherwise you feel like you are procrastinating and you are avoiding that, well, since you are avoiding the work, you're also avoiding the boredom. Like, it's just like a different way to say, like, hey, instead of work, which is the hard thing that you're resisting, replace that with boredom. Yeah, but you are also resisting boredom. It's like, you really haven't changed anything. And I get the feeling that the reason why this works for him, it's more like personal than it's a solution that would work for anyone.
But it's not lazy. It's a brain problem. Researchers have seen through positron emission tomography, which is a brain scan, that people with ADHD have a disruption in the dopamine reward pathway in the brain. What is the dopamine reward pathway? Well, here's a quick explanation of dopamine. There's 4.
Just before we get to any solutions, she is explaining it like an expert, which is good. But one thing to keep in mind, I would not necessarily, this is a brain problem, because the moment when you say this, it's almost like it looks fixed. It's like, oh, biologically, like something is wrong with you, so therefore, you have to deal with this. Well, I personally struggled with procrastination on many things, and I still do. But at the same time, I also can get myself to do the work that I need to be doing, and therefore somehow magically my brain problem disappears. Well, that doesn't really explain how come something that otherwise looks like, at least the way she described it, like it's fixed, can be dealt with, and you can really improve in so many ways if you just find what works for you. Well, in that sense, it looks like more it's a psychological problem than a brain problem. And again, with your psychology, you can always deal with that. They say that you're always just one idea away from bliss or from heaven, meaning that even in your worst moments, let's say you're depressed and all of that, just like one idea away can shift your whole perspective. Well, the same goes with procrastination. You might be just avoiding, and you might be in terrible shame and guilt, but just one idea, you're one idea away from completely shifting that. And if you have tried multiple times and dealt with yourself and managed yourself around procrastination, you notice that some things work better than others. So I would say that things are more malleable, things are more, that you can actually achieve a lot more. There is a lot more room to improve. This is why managing or dealing with yourself and really trying different things, you're going to discover this potential. You're going to discover capabilities that you thought or you never knew that are available to you. But let's see, where's the value?
Dopamine pathways in the brain. Think of the pathways as messaging systems that use nerves to transport dopamine from one part of the brain to the next. Within each of these pathways, dopamine sends specific messages to the endpoint destination that tells it what to do. Two of the pathways affect motivation. The first one is the mesolimbic pathway, where you get dopamine traveling from your midbrain to structures in your limbic system.
You say one thing I also want to add. This person, because of their job and their specialty, and this type of educational content looks very good. It looks like, how can I say? It looks like, oh, people feel like, oh, this person knows what they are talking. And, from their expertise, yeah, they do. But this is not, I would say, not really helpful for the people who actually struggle with procrastination. Because if you're struggling with that, you are not going to have really the patience to understand all of that and maybe hear about things that you have never heard before and be like, oh, I need to understand what is this limbic system and this and that. And I'm like, hey, now I want to solve procrastination. I don't want to learn about 1,000 other things that maybe I don't care that much about. I just want to solve this. And I would say that the solution has to be more simple than this. Like oftentimes this, at least me, makes me feel like it's actually a lot more simple than that.
System. Your limbic area processes emotional memory. Therefore, when you experience
like this is by the way, this is a lesson in biology. It's not really helpful. Again, I might say something that goes against this, but my point is to help people. My point is not to just validate things that I know that don't really work. But when I see something that works, I will definitely say it.
That's pleasurable, this part of the brain is activated by dopamine, and you learn that this activity brings pleasure. That pleasure can be basic needs like food and sex, or more complex gratification like praise and validation. And this is what we mean by reward. You do something like eat a piece of chocolate, and you learn that the chocolate feels good, and you desire to eat more chocolate. Likewise, if you prepare for a task and you're successful, you learn that hard work produces success at some level. The second important pathway that affects the ADHD brain is the mesocortical pathway. With this pathway, dopamine is produced by nerve cells in the midbrain, and it travels to your prefrontal cortex. This area of your brain is responsible for motivation and executive functions. Executive functions are things like working memory, thinking, and decision.
And this is like a lesson in biology. Like I see this. Again, respect for this person with their expertise, but again, when it's about helping people to actually do and to achieve personal transformation, things have to be more simple than that, because this type of this level of expertise and so much information that is delivered so fast could be delivered by an AI. Like all that she said could be delivered by AI. Like it's a lot of information, but not much useful value for people to achieve transformation. This is what I think it's missing in here. Like literally, I could take Claude and make like a clone or something, some sort of persona, like something that looks like a person, and then put Claude, like, hey, explain exactly all of this, how it works in the brain, and Claude could do all of this. But are we missing information? Is this why people still procrastinate? Because we have the internet, and now we have Claude and ChatGPT and all the LLMs, and we have access to free, high-level intelligence, and at the same time, people still procrastinate. How come? Well, it's because the solution is not into knowing all of this. The solution is to really align yourself with yourself, and that's what most LLMs really cannot do, because they do not have the human experience, and that's a very big difference. Here we have knowledge, but the act of knowing is more something that you can achieve with yourself, and that's very different.
So how can you tell if you are addicted to procrastination? It's very simple, but it's gonna suck. The first thing that you need to do is just try to map out all of your distractions. A technique that I often teach, I've put it in other videos, I teach it in my program, is a distraction cheat sheet. You just sit down, try to study, do some focused work, have a piece of paper next to you, and every time you get distracted, just write down what it was that distracted you. Try to be as specific as possible. Do this until you feel like you've got a pretty good list of all the things that are distracting you. The next step.
You see, the problem here is that in order to work, what is presented here is that in order for you to work through your procrastination, now you have to do more tedious work, like list all your distractions. So, well, people who often get distracted, they don't have time to list their distractions. That is living inside of a bubble. And you cannot really be inside of the bubble. You are trapped, you are addicted, and at the same time be outside of the bubble. But okay, let me remove everything. Like, who removes everything? To remove everything is the person who actually steps out and go like, oh, wow, I have all of these things. Let me cut. Let me do the work. But what is required for you to do all of that? You cannot really be in two places at once. I mean, like, mindset-wise, right? Imagine how much work you have to do in order to now list all the triggers that you have, remove all distractions, start mindful meditations, like do all this work when you go like, well, you know what? It would be just like more simple for me to go back to that. It would be just like, now it feels like I should be taking more work, and maybe this is how this would work, that you would be like, you know what? Instead of doing all of this, which I perceive to be a lot more, let me just go back to the work and that's it, right? Always remember, the solutions are actually a lot more easy than the proposed solutions look like. Because proposed solutions is just reverse engineering, trying to break down everything, explain how the mind works, all of this, and it's just like that is really not going to work.